Good day, and it's another episode of WEDCOnomics, which is a podcast for Wentworth Economic Development Corporation, which operates in the Eastern Lakes region. The mission of WEDCO is to advise, finance, and promote the small business sector and entrepreneurs in the Eastern Lakes region. And we have a very special guest today, and we're going to talk small business with a special guest. I'd like to introduce Congressman Chris Pappas. Chris, welcome.
Jack, great to see you. and welcome, by the way. Yeah, we're really thrilled to see you in this position.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate the work that WEDCO does.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been a really interesting journey, and look forward to many years of being able to serve small business and entrepreneurs in the Eastern Lakes region. That is, as we say, the backbone of our economy.
That's right.
Is small business.
That's right.
I think it's like 88% of our service area are employees with less than 20.
Yeah.
Employers with less than 20 employees. So that's our sector. That's what we...
that's it, and that's it statewide, really. Our
small
businesses drive the state economy, and even among the category of small businesses, and there are a lot of different ways to define that.
Right.
You've got micro businesses with very few employees, a lot of small businesses that are run out of people's homes.
Correct.
Of course, maybe some larger, more hospitality-oriented businesses, but it runs the gamut, and so there's a lot under that umbrella, and making sure that the support is there, that it's fine-tuned to appreciate the experiences that they have is critically important. And I know that's something that WEDCO works to achieve.
and not really coming from that side of things, I think it's great that regionally economic development corporations are represented and out there for that purpose, and that's it wouldn't happen without funding from places like the USDA and HUD, and so it's great to be boots on the ground, which is what I consider WEDCO to be. We are not a degree separated from small businesses. We are in it with you, all the way from advice to success. And that's a really cool part of the business, because when you see somebody take an idea and get it to viability, and you're a part of that, it feels really good. It feels good.
Yeah.
So enjoying it so far. Before you got into politics, which I assume there was a before you got into politics, you must have had some small business experiences in your life. You want to share that?
Sure. I had the great fortune of growing up in a small business family in Manchester, just a few miles south of here. We've got a 4-generation family business that my great-grandfather opened. It's a restaurant business.
Do you want to say the name of it?
It's the Puritan Backroom Restaurant in Manchester.
Know it well.
We've got about 230 employees currently, and before I got elected to Congress, that was my day-to-day.
It was?
Owning and managing the operations of the restaurant alongside other family members, and just a really terrific team. And when you're in a business like that, every day brings with it some unique challenges, and you really have to work hard to meet the needs of your customers and understand the trends that are happening in the economy and how you're going to overcome them or work with them. And so we're just lucky to have gotten through some tumultuous times over the last few years, and in my role in Congress, work very closely with the business sector to make sure they have the resources they need, the support they need to navigate some really tricky times. Right now, as we've come out of the pandemic period, the focus is on how we can bolster our workforce, how we can ensure that there's access to capital as small businesses begin to get back to some sense of normalcy. But there are a lot of disruptions happening, and I think having that kind of background where that there are a lot of forces at work in our economy, and small businesses often struggle to deal with red tape and regulations. It's a perspective that I bring to Washington. So I serve on the Small Business Committee in the House.
Oh, you do?
Which is, focused like a laser on the needs of our small business economy, and have brought those experiences with me to Washington.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So at one point, how many generations of the Pappas family would be working in the business, in the Puritan
Well,
family
at one
restaurant.
point we had 3 generations working together
And
side
y'all
by
got
side.
along?
Yeah, it's a lucky experience to have when you are part of a multi-generation family business like that. And there's so many across New Hampshire, and so some days it can be challenging, but to be able to work with your family members day in and day out, and when you're in a business like hospitality, it's a lot of hours. We were working 60, 70 hours a week before I got elected to Congress.
I don't think
So-
you traded in for less hours, right?
Well, it's a different pace,
Yeah.
and much of what I do now is interfacing with constituents and people around New Hampshire, taking those stories and ideas back with me to Washington. But having that kind of background of being a part of a business where it's an all hands on deck experience and just dealing with the curveballs that come up, I think it prepares you well for politics, especially just dealing with people and figuring out where people are, how to meet their needs, how to listen to people that might have complaints about things. You kind of get an appreciation for how you can bring people together, synthesize it, and focus on getting the job done.
So the obviously it's been a very successful family business, and a lot of employees now. 230, you say. That's huge. I'm curious. You must have some long-term employees who have been there for years.
We do. We
Yeah.
do. The longest term employee, I think, was hired by my great-grandfather in 1967, and he is still there working in the kitchen. So he's been there, 56 years.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty long career.
Yeah.
But we have lots of folks who have been there 30, 40 plus years, as well as people who are just starting out.
Yeah.
People who have had their parents and grandparents work with my family in the restaurant, also new Americans who are achieving their own American dream, and it's wonderful to see that as well.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of everything, and when you have that longevity and connection to the community, it really grounds you, and you realize that it's not just about the dollars and cents, it's about how you can be there for other people, how you can support the people that you work with, but also how you can make an impact on the larger community.
Yeah. The as you know, it's very often a struggle for small businesses to get help, particularly these days. It's you see it everywhere. You see people changing their models of how they operate simply because they can't get help. What do you think attributes to the fact that you have so many people that have been with the restaurant for such a long time? What are the contributing factors that kept those people there?
Well, I think you treat people as they're members of your own family, and you look to reward hard work and value those people that are contributing and are integral parts of the team. And so that's something that we made a priority, provided health insurance for our workers before it was required by the Affordable Care Act, and looked to meet the needs of the families that worked with us at the restaurant. So that's one thing that was critically important for us. Of course, we've never seen a labor market as tight as what we are seeing right now. Our unemployment rate in New Hampshire is below 2%. The last rate was 1.9% last month. So it's a challenge. Very few people are collecting unemployment right now, but there are some people who are on the side of the workforce who could be working, and there are barriers that we've got to work to address, whether it's making sure people have access to treatment for substance misuse, looking at the issue around affordable housing, also the issue of affordable childcare, and making sure that people have a way to care for their kids so they can be out working and earning a living. We're also working on the immigration issue, making sure we're expanding the visa programs like H-2B visas, which are a lifeline to a lot of seasonal businesses in New Hampshire. So there's some practical ways that I think we can address the workforce challenges, but certainly businesses right now are working to retain and attract employees, and certainly I think investing in your workforce is one way to make sure that you'll have that level of longevity that you need to keep your operation going.
Do you think that this tight labor market is the new normal? And advice to somebody looking at a small business is build your model to withstand a tight labor market, or is this a passing thing?
Well, I think it's going to take some time for this to work through. Certainly our economy is cyclical, and so is the labor market. But there are some underlying issues that we've got to address in order for us to be able to overcome this challenge. And I think one of them is the housing issue, making sure that we have a greater stock of affordable housing and really housing of all levels in New Hampshire. We're 20,000 units short of where we need to be today statewide just to meet today's demand. Our vacancy rate is 0.3%, and it should be about 5%. So that drives up prices. It makes New Hampshire more expensive, and for people that are working for a living, it's often hard to live in the community in which you want to work. So that's a challenge that is going to take some time to be able to address. So I think this low unemployment rate, it's a good thing if you're in a job, you're looking to move to a new career, or perhaps get into a more lucrative line of work. But it's a challenge for our small businesses. It's going to take some time to work through some of the underlying factors that I think are contributing to it.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting time, and entrepreneurs out there, small businesses. You've heard somebody speak, Congressman Pappas, about his knowledge of the things that we struggle with. And so it's good to have that voice in a place where you can make a difference. So that's great. And remember that there's resources here existing in the state, not only Wentworth Economic Development Corporation, but places like the Small Business Development Center and other organizations that are literally here, placed here, to give you a hand. Mm-hmm. And it's critical to take advantage of that, because the issues are complex and they're not easily solved, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. What you should do is take advantage of the resources out there to help guide you through a very complex landscape that changes.
It's absolutely right. There are a number of resource partners out there, and you mentioned some that are there for our small business community if you're just starting out, or whether you're looking to grow your business. And the sort of coaching that's available through our regional economic development corporations, through organizations like SCORE, are really great to be able to help you develop a plan and execute it. And really one of the most challenging things in business is being able to take that step back from the day-to-day and focus on longer range plans. And whether you're just developing a business, or whether you've been in business for some time, it's just time is your most precious resource. And to be able to take full advantage of the resources that are out there is certainly a big benefit, and something that I think more business owners should do.
And many of those resources are low cost or no cost.
That's right.
So there's no reason. So we hammer a lot on this global podcast, the importance of a business plan. And I was curious, I want to talk a little bit about your change in life from going from a small family business, which isn't that small, but a family business, to Washington, representing the people in New Hampshire. And I was curious your thoughts, because we feel that a business plan is so essential to the success, or the long-term success of a business. Do you operate under a governance plan? I'm trying to determine the difference between what you were doing and what you're doing today. And I know your family had a business plan right from the get-go, and has guided them to great success. What do you do about a business plan as a politician representing people from New Hampshire?
Well, certainly you need to have a reason for why you're in office, and a set of issues that you're going to work on when you get elected. And so really we do have a strategic plan and a roadmap for the work that we're trying to get done for the people of New Hampshire. Some of it's defined by the committees that I serve on in Washington, so I'm on 3, in addition to small business, where we're working on workforce issues and access to capital. I'm also a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Veterans Affairs Committee. And so, once you've served a few years, and I'm now in my 3rd term, we've got a set of bills, legislation that we've honed over time that we're continuing to work to pass. Other ideas that we've already been able to pass into law, things like toxic exposure support for veterans that we're working on implementing right now. In addition to that, the infrastructure law that we passed a couple years ago, still working on making sure the benefits get out to communities in New Hampshire. So those are some of our committee-based issues that we have jurisdiction over that we focus most on. But in addition to that, issues concerning addiction and mental health are top of mind to us. And so we really try to stay as focused as possible on the issues that are most relevant to people and the things that we're hearing about where we can really lean in and make a difference. To me, public service should be about serving the public and not just about political point scoring. And we really look at what we can deliver for the district as opposed to, whether we can win a debate in Washington, D.C. Because at the end of the day, it's about, can we actually get something done that's going to help people? And frankly, the only way to do that is to work together, to find compromise and work to build consensus. And that's sometimes the most challenging part of the process. You can have a great idea, but how you get it from a stage where you're introducing a bill to actually enacting a policy that's going to help on an issue, it's a long journey. It can take many years sometimes, and it takes a lot of support from folks that you need to rally to the cause.
So when I hear that, right, there's not a lot of difference from taking that idea and getting it enacted into some sort of action as to taking an idea of starting a business and getting it into a viable business, starting with an idea. There's just steps along the way. And when I hear the 3 committees that you're serving on, they sound like they're mutually reinforcing as to what you want to accomplish for the state of New Hampshire. It just sounds that way to me. They're all sort of interrelated.
Yep.
So was that part of your design as to what committees I want to be on or serve on to further what I want to do for the state of New Hampshire?
Yeah, I really want to be operating in a practical space where we can get some things done and solve some problems, and I think those are some of the committees where that happens more often than not, where issues are still handled in a bipartisan fashion. And I think when you come out of a small business background, your day-to-day is about giving people an experience or delivering a product or pushing your goods and services out to the larger community. I think when you come from that experience, you want to be able to measure what you're doing each and every day, and sometimes in politics it's challenging to do that, but we're really focused on how we can actually make some things happen as opposed to just pushing paper and winning an argument in Washington, D.C. We really want this work to be relevant back home.
So in small business, or any business for that matter, being nimble is very important. If I would think, because environment changes, people's tastes change, interests change, so you have to be not only attuned but nimble to make a change. So if something is on the menu and it just is not connecting with people, you're going to take it off the menu, right? And I don't think people in general think of Washington, D.C. as nimble. So is that a point of frustration for you, or am I wrong? Are these committees and is our government more nimble than we think?
Well, our system is not designed to make swift change overnight, and it's designed to be a deliberative process where many people have input in shaping an outcome. And so it's hard to get the stars to align when you want to get an idea passed. So I think that is definitely a frustration for me. When you're in business, you can make something happen pretty quickly. I can see the meals that are going out the door at our restaurant, or the people that are walking through and are getting served. In Washington D.C., it's a little bit harder to see how the pieces are all put in place. But if you're really committed to the work, you have to be persistent, and you have to really keep your eyes on the horizon and think long term. Sometimes you can realize short-term success really quickly, but that's rare. But most often you're working to educate your colleagues about an idea, attract support, and again, it needs to be on a bipartisan basis in order to pass really anything meaningful, and just stay committed to the cause. And you also have to keep an open mind too, because you might start out with an idea or a set of priorities in a bill, but you might have to modify that in order to get the buy-in that you need to get it through. So I think the most successful members of Congress are the ones that get to know their colleagues on an individual basis and are able to build consensus. And sometimes that means being open to new thoughts and ideas, and being able to modify your set of priorities.
Would you say that was your biggest adjustment from being a business owner and now representing the people of New Hampshire, going to Washington, D.C., the adjustment of expectations of what you can accomplish and cannot?
Sure. I think that, again, it does take some time to see, change through, and sometimes you just won't be successful.
Yeah.
But it's, many times it's important to make the case and just to continue to try. And again, I think you do have to be persistent when you're in the political arena and are in public service, and really put the interests of your district front and center. What I appreciate about the job is that you're a representative. That's your job description and your job title all in one. You're the only person that represents your district. There's no one else representing the 700,000 people in New Hampshire's first congressional district other than me in the House. And so it's an incredible responsibility, and you just gotta try every way to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, and moving away from sort of the challenges, what's the thing that excites you most in this position? What brings you the most satisfaction as in this role?
I think it's honestly being away from Washington and being in New Hampshire. And much of the time that I spend home in New Hampshire, I'm out connecting with people in all 75 communities in the first congressional district, including here in the Wolfeboro area.
And here on WEDCOnomics.
That's right. We come back early and often to Wolfeboro, and learn a lot from the local business owners that we meet with. We hold roundtable discussions on a variety of different issues. And so I think the most rewarding and interesting part of the job to me is how do you create a feedback loop between what you're hearing in New Hampshire and the work in Washington, and then in turn take the work that you're doing in Washington back to the people of New Hampshire to sort of assess it and see if it needs to be fine-tuned. And we do that a lot, whether it's on a veterans issue where we're hearing about how people are struggling perhaps to get access to care, and then working on that issue in our committee, and then again taking it back to New Hampshire once perhaps we've gotten something through. It's just really how it should all work, and I think how the role was designed, and that's, I think, a really important and also really rewarding part of what I do.
I've always found in my experience that when I was losing my way, go back out to the people. And when I ran the United Way, when I was forgetting exactly why we're here, and because I was enmeshed in this and that, and just go out to the organizations that we support, see what they do, and it centered me right away. And I imagine it would be the same for you. Come back to New Hampshire, visit, talk, and its centers, right?
Yeah, that's the goal, and I think there are frankly members of Congress that don't make that a priority and perhaps spend too much time in Washington and are focused a little bit more on their own careers as opposed to what the job should be about. It's about representing people, about trying to provide good constituent service and understanding what's happening in the district, and then taking that back with us to Washington.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to have some wrap-up questions.
Sure.
What you've been talking about is very interesting, and I hope folks that if you have further questions or concerns, you certainly reach out to Congressman Chris here, and I'm sure you would engage with them to elaborate on
Absolutely.
whatever we might have said today. So that's why we're here. But if I was to ask you what is the biggest lesson you've taken from Washington, D.C., what would you say that is?
Well, to hit on a theme we've already talked about, I think it's just to keep an open mind and to listen as much as you want to talk. You've got to realize that you might come in with a preconceived notion about a topic, but you don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and neither does your party. And I think in the process, you can arrive at solutions that will actually work and make a difference. I also think that there's a disconnect between Washington and the real world, and things and systems can be designed in Washington that frankly miss the mark once you get back home to the ground level. So it's really about staying rooted in your communities and about making sure that's informing the work that we're doing in Washington. So it's a challenging place to make change, but you got to be persistent.
I think that's a solid lesson, and if I were to ask you the same thing about what your biggest lesson from small business, you could almost say exactly the same thing.
Sure.
Right? It's being attuned, it's listening, it's being open-minded, it's being willing to adjust where necessary to get to the greater good, and rather than the immediate good. So it sounds very similar to me, what you're trying to do as a representative for New Hampshire, and what somebody might be trying to do building a new business.
And I think in both worlds, no one can get anything done by themselves. You really do have to build a team, whether it's a team of employees that you're working with, or whether it's a team of folks out in the community that are supporting you or share your vision or can help in some way, shape, or form. Those things are very transferable between the political world and the business world. And again, it's a struggle. It's a challenging time to be an entrepreneur. I met a lot of folks that were opening new businesses during the pandemic or shortly after, and it's just, it's never been as tough to sort of navigate, that role, and to be able to deal with the forces of, inflation and supply chain disruptions and access to capital. There are some great success stories out there, including right here in the Lakes region, and certainly we celebrate and are there, want to help those folks that, that are entrepreneurs and are running small businesses.
So someday, if it comes and you decided to leave politics, and you came back to New Hampshire and you wanted to start a small business, and you came to WEDCO for some financial support, what small business would you open up today if you left politics?
Yeah. I would have to think long and hard about what the next move would be. Frankly, if I wasn't in Congress, I would be, at my
back at the restaurant,
in Manchester. And we've got so much going on there that I couldn't ever imagine opening another outlet up here in the Lakes region.
Okay.
But I know that you've got a lot of ways that you can help folks, and I think for me, I just enjoy the hospitality industry and what it means to sort of serve other people, give people a great experience. And so I think it would be something along those lines.
Something in hospitality. Speaking of hospitality, if you got a couple favorite restaurants up on our side of the lake over here?
Yeah, I've been to Burnt Timber several times.
Nice.
They've got great beer, and I've had some great food over there as well. So that's one of my favorites.
Did you hear that, Eddie?
And I know WEDCO has been working with them for years.
And we, as you know, there's tons of small businesses. Do you have any favorite small businesses you could name in our region that strike a chord with you?
Yeah. No, I've been to, again, so many and met so many of the small business owners. I think of the Tumble Down Farm, which has a great event space and just really expansive property there. It's a beautiful venue for events.
It sure is. Yeah.
That's one I've gotten to know the owner there. The Meadery in the area too is a place that I've visited, and that's a real unique product. And something that really only a few places in New England are producing mead to that level. So
yeah.
It's really exciting just to see the creativity that's out there. People are doing really unique things, and that's what helps, I think, strengthen our competitive advantage in New Hampshire as a whole. It's the resiliency, the strength of our small businesses, the diversity that they bring to the table. It really defines the culture of our state, and that's why the supportive organizations, the lenders, the resource partners that are out there supporting small businesses, they're just so important to be able to facilitate continued development.
Yeah, well, it is exciting, and particularly the bolder the idea, the more interesting we get over here, and the more interesting we get over here, the more people
That's right.
will want to visit and check out all these incredible places. So we thank you for the support you do give the small business community and the entrepreneurs in our area, what you're doing in Washington in support of them. It's awesome that your background is in small business and entrepreneurship, so I think that's a great place for us to have you right now, and we look forward to continued support as we try and take the Eastern Lakes region and continue to build on the fact that it is an awesome place to go, and there's plenty to do, and lots of good food to eat, and the beauty is second to none, in my opinion. And we've got some wonderful small towns that are friendly and would welcome folks, and so we're going to continue our work. We hope you can continue your work. We've come to an end, folks. We've run out of time. I appreciate you all tuning in again. Congressman Pappas, he insists I call him Chris. I can't. But no, Chris insists that if you have some thoughts or ideas that have been spurred by this conversation and you want to continue the conversation, we can reach out to our congressman, and you will respond. I know you will. And so thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Jack Terrill, Executive Director of Wentworth Economic Development Corp. We're in business to advise, finance, and promote the small business sector in Eastern Lakes region, and we will see you on our next episode. And Chris, thank you for coming
Jack,
on.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for all that you do.
All right,
Take
guys.
care, everyone.
Thank you.